Hello, everyone. Say anything to anybody?
Hello.
Let's look at the S&P and the Russell because the Russell's the most inclusive. My understanding, I could be wrong, but anyway, if you look at the S&P um, since 2009, you see my green line here, 2009, the vertical line, the green
Yeah, I
vertical
see the
start
vertical.
point. Yeah, March of 2009. From that point to the present, look at the uptrend right to the present, right? We've been in an uptrend since 2009. Now, granted, there was a couple of down spots here, and particularly in, as you recall, March of 2020. Remember that big dip, right? But basically, it just barely broke trend here. It barely broke trend in 2009, even though that was a big dip.
Yeah, and everybody thought the world was ending.
Right. And then you know what's interesting? Here's what's fascinating that I've been studying these patterns. Look what I'm going to point out to you if I doodle it. I'm going to circle it for you. What does this look like? This big pattern I just circled. What do you call that? What do you call it?
I call it I call it a V.
Okay. You could call it a V, and you're correct. That's a classic inverted head and shoulders. Classic. Well, I turned the doodle off. Yeah.
You think?
What?
Well,
it is.
Usually the shoulders have. Usually the head and shoulders is the entry is from the bottom, not from the top. And on the left side of this, it's entering the top.
Yeah. Okay. So bottom line is it's a big V, like you said, but what I've circled is a classic inverted head and shoulders. Bottom line.
Which played out like an inverted head and shoulders.
Exactly, as did the one before it. See that I circled. So look where we are now. This thing, and it goes back to what I've been saying to you, where I thought it would peak at around, remember I told you 43, 4,400, 4,500. Well, it peaked at 47.66, right?
I just remember you saying Dow 50,000.
Yeah. So, but we're looking at S&P. So anyway. Yeah. So, but look, see, this. It's making a head and shoulders. Do you see this whole thing since March?
Inverted head and shoulders?
No. This whole thing is a head and shoulders.
Oh, okay. You don't. So you're talking a normal head and shoulders.
Yeah. Look at this whole thing. I'll circle it for you.
Yeah, that's a pretty scary thing because that is one huge head and shoulder.
That's what I'm
saying. You're talking what, like a 2,000 point head and shoulder?
That's what I'm saying, bro. Look at it. Look at the size of it. That's a big ass head and shoulder. So
where am I going? Play out over the next year or two.
100%. So you remember I said to you a month or two ago, this thing's going to drop to 3,500. Well, look what it dropped to, 3,580. See it? The line I drew, it dropped right to 3,580. Right. So this thing is an.
Where did you get that number from?
I got it from this. making it. I got it from if it essentially goes to trend, basically trend, which is this horizontal line intersecting with the 45-degree trend, which is right there. That's where I got it from.
But you could see it. 2026.
Yeah, basic geometry. So now this thing currently is in a.
Let me ask you a question. Could this break the trend? If this head and shoulder plays out, it's going to smash through this trend line.
100%, bro. So right now, that's where I'm going with this, bro. So right now, it's in a mini uptrend. See the mini uptrend from like right here, from like September of last year to the present. You see the line I put in here? It's in this mini uptrend. See it? Now, but here's the thing. This thing, if you do the math, 4,800, let's say, down to 3,500 or 3,600.
Well, it's more than that. It's more than that because. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. You go with 40, your numbers.
Yeah, 4,800 and 3,600. Right. That's a differential of 1,200. So from shut this off. Sorry. From 4,800 down to 36. That's right here where you see my horizontal line. That's a 25% drop. But this thing,
or from the top?
From the top, right here.
Yeah.
Down to right here.
Which was end of 2021, right? November.
No, October of last
No,
year.
no, the top. We've already been in a downtrend for over a year.
Exactly. So the top was December of 2021. So since December 2021, we're essentially still in the downtrend if I put a line here. But here's my point. That was just 25%, amigo. If this thing goes to trend, and I've been telling you that, look where I got a low of the line. Trend is like roughly around
2018 or 2019.
Well, if it goes to trend, look where it's at. It's got to go to 3,300.
Plus,
So,
can I just interject?
yeah.
When you look at a chart,
Yeah.
when you look at a chart and you see a stock has spiked higher, and it is like you can see white space between your 10-day moving average and the price of the stock, you know that it's overrun or it's overbought, right? You know that it's run too far ahead. It's got to come back, or it's got to consolidate.
It's slightly, so currently the S&P is above the moving average slightly. The moving average is at 44,021. So it's 100 points above. So it's going to come down is the point, probably, right? So,
yeah, and then if you put in like a 20 and a 50, it tells you that's what, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm still learning all this. I use a 10, 20, 50, and 200. And when I see the short-term ones higher or lower, that tells me what the trend is, right?
yeah. So basically, so let me give you an example. It's called a cross. So if you compare the 50-day, even if it's a simple moving average, to the 200-day moving average, even if it's simple, as soon as you see the 50-day, which is the shorter duration, cross the 200 in an upward manner, that is, go above the 200,
or even if you see the directions going opposite direction.
Well,
right?
you know you're in an uptrend. You know you're heading into an uptrend if it gets above it and stays above it and starts diverging from the 200. You know you're in an uptrend. Conversely, amigo, like you said, if the 50 starts breaking below the 200, which, oh, by the way, AG is a great example to show for that. If you look at AG, if you put the 50 in there and the 200, you're going to see that the 50-day moving average on AG has been well below 200 since like last fall. So
would you argue that's the time to buy, or would you say because realistically people should have gotten out of Dodge long before it got to 100%, that point, right?
Yes. So what you could argue is once it gets below, once that 50 crossed the 200, you should give it a day or 2 or 3 days, right? Because it could pop back up.
Yeah, you look for confirmation.
Yeah, you look for confirmation because, like, for example, you look at what's on the screen here. You remember March right here when it broke down, right?
Yes.
Well, some people right around here might have put on a big ass short thinking, oh, it's going to keep going. Well, if you would put on a big ass short, you would have been stopped out, right? Because look what it did, right?
Yeah.
So, you got to give
that's called making generational wealth if you went long in March 2020.
Oh, yeah. Look
like if we had bought those Neo calls for $1, which I know we talked about.
Yep. Or I know we just weren't at that level then. I wasn't. And the thing is, if you had even dumped 10K into Tesla right then.
Oh yeah. It would be what, $250,000 today?
I don't know, $250,000, but I'd say 100,000 probably easy. It would have 10x probably. Yeah.
Well, if you'd sold, because Tesla got up to what, $400?
Oh, you're right. I was thinking shares, but you're right. If you went in, let's say you dumped in 10K in calls, if you had big balls, 10K in calls. You're right. It probably would have been 200,000 or 300,000. Probably. Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I always try to say to Dan when we're talking is that it's always important. I mean, these things are so simple, but we take these things for granted. But buy low, sell high, or sell high, buy low. and it's so easy because when emotions start getting involved in this stuff, people are like, oh, I got to get in. I got to get in.
But if you look at this, sorry to interrupt, This is a head and shoulder, dude, is it not? Look, this is the shoulder. See the left shoulder down here?
Yeah, but you know, do you,
This
I don't
thing,
think the pros play patterns that are developing until they develop.
well, here's what I say. If you're going to skate to where you think the puck is going,
Yeah.
you need to look at the overarching pattern and then develop your strategy from there, because like
That's right, and identify if you're going to be wrong, where you're going to be wrong,
exactly,
and
where you're
then
going to be short.
get out of your position.
Right. So I'll give you another example. Here's another perfect example. I'll do it in red again. What is this right here that I just circled right there?
Well, it's a pivot point.
Yeah, but what else? What else do you see? I blew it up for you. What's the
Well,
shape?
a W.
There you go, bro. Double bottom, classic W. So the minute it hit this bottom here, started to, and then popped up a little bit for confirmation, it was building a W. If you had gone long here, right, you would have made a killing. Look where it went up. You would have made a killing. This is why you need to know these patterns.
And this is why we have to have these sessions, because to be quite honest with you, most of us don't have this systemic process.
I do. I do this every day now.
So you saw that back in July, August?
I to an extent at this macro market level.
Because I don't remember you ever showing me that before.
Well, no, I didn't specifically see it, but I can tell you this: I see it every day now on a daily basis with the stocks. I see it with Nvidia. I see it with Meta, in particular. I see these patterns day in and day out. That's why I've been able to be as successful as I've been, as I showed you with my spreadsheet. Yeah. I just have to have more courage to go in bigger.
The pros go in and they say, we're good until this point. If it gets to this point, we're out.
100%.
They don't sit there hemming and hawing.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
And that's why they can go in with a large size, because they know what their risk is.
That's a great point. That's an excellent point. And so that's what I need to get. I need to get more disciplined at that. I need to trust my convictions more, go into the double or triple size. But to your point, instead of using mental stops, I need to set a physical stop or an electronic stop.
You have to have the, like you on your spreadsheet, is you have the numbers in there.
Yeah.
Where's my target? What is my target? And where's my stop?
Yep.
And so you can do that, because if you have an 87% win rate,
you saw that, yeah.
Hello, when you go to look at that, can you guesstimate time frame on when you think it's going to drop? Because it's not a symmetrical head and shoulder.
No, it's not. So that's a good point. So here's what I'll show you. We're in a mini uptrend from this double bottom that you see here. You agree? You see that uptrend, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let me draw this for you. Here's what you see right now, which is interesting. I'm going to circle it for you. What does this right here look like?
Well, it looks like what you said before, an inverted head and shoulder.
It's an inverted head and shoulder. And look what it did. Look what it did, buddy. It's completing it. And look where it's topping out. Now it's a double top in a way, right? So it's just completed its head and shoulder, which means chances are, and it's above the 10-day moving average. So it's got to come down. It's going to come down to, in my opinion, roughly around here before it goes up again, if it's going to go up.
Or if it comes down to where, go back to where you were. Yeah. If it comes down to that pivot and makes a triple bottom, that forms an M. And M patterns are like W's. They continue down a majority of the time.
Yeah. So you're saying...
So really, we're at a pivotal point right now.
So are you saying this? Because I do this all the time. Are you saying if I...
Yeah, straight down.
Make a dotted line.
Yeah, that forms an M.
Oh, okay. From here, this is the M?
Yeah. Well, and what's a W? Look at the W. Look at the W you just circled before. Yeah, it's the same thing, only inverted.
Exactly. No, I agree. So to your point, to get to trend, it could do this, right? Maybe, right?
Absolutely, it could do that.
These are the things I do during the day. I look at the patterns And see the dotted lines? I do this all day long. Make my circles. I make my dotted lines. I do this all day long while I'm working.
Yeah, and if I do the same thing, and really what it comes down to, if you zoom into where we are right now,
Yeah,
zoom in a little bit further,
yeah,
then
yeah,
then you can see that it's very clear pivot point
yeah.
right in the center of that circle. You can see that top pivot point. If it comes down to around 404, 405, say 405 is critical support.
Yeah.
That's a critical pivot point.
I agree. And I agree with that. And that's what I was saying, amigo, that this pattern that I just circled, the inverted head and shoulders, normally what happens, not always, but normally it drops a certain level, like here. And here's what it does normally. It drops a certain level. I'll draw it out for you. It'll go down to like right about here, right? And then it'll do something like this, right? A mini one. Then it may kind of do this. And what have I made?
Yeah, another W.
Another W, exactly. So we're at a point.
If it's going higher.
Well, here's my point. We just drew both scenarios. If it just finished the head and shoulders, you see it. It's clearly topping it out. Mm-hmm. Is it going to make an M, or is it going to make a W and keep going higher? Right?
Well,
that's the analysis, the technical analysis part, right?
This is the other thing. We talk about this a lot. Yeah. 30 days in the market is an eternity. And you can go from extreme greed to extreme fear in a month.
100%.
And vice versa.
100%.
So I know everybody's bullish right now saying, happy days are here again. The Fed
they are,
has
to an
liquidity.
extent.
Oh, yeah, because the Fed basically gave unlimited cash to these banks to stop the death.
The bleeding.
Yep. And, but I've been telling you for years now, you can't anticipate external influences.
Yeah, no argument, bro.
And so if you look at the upside versus the downside, well, we're at a very pivotal point because if the market is able to get above that pivot right there, I think it's 420. If it can get above 420 on the S&P, then it's going to rip much higher. I mean, if we talk about energy, I mean, if we're going into a deflationary event, if you call up USO, Dan, on that chart, USO.
Well, before I do, I want to finish with the S&P. So keep this imprinted in your mind. Right now, we're in an uptrend, but sooner or later, you see this as a big head and shoulder. So the thesis is, if it gets back to trend, dude, it could drop to 3,200 easy.
Well, before that, we're going to know within the next 2 weeks what the S&P is going to do.
Okay, so that's fine.
Probably.
Now, what's this chart I'm looking at? What's this one? It's not the S&P. What am I looking at?
The IWM.
I'm looking at the Russell 2000.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I said.
Yeah, so what's this look like? Same thing. It's the same basic fucking shape. It's a head and shoulder, right? And look what it did. It double bottomed just like the S&P did. See it? The two double bottoms. And it's in a mini uptrend just like the S&P. But
the S&P is higher than its W, much higher.
Okay, but basically they're the same shape. Look at this shape in March of 2020. Did the exact same thing. Look at the trend since March of 2009. Same 45-degree trend with a break just one time, right? So it's the same friggin' shape is what I'm telling you, basically, right?
Makes sense. Everything's controlled by computers today.
Exactly. So this is why patterns are important. And me having an IT background, like in having done light scripting and coding, whatever.
Well, I agree with you. More so than ever, patterns play out because everything is an algorithm. And you can see it. All these companies, like the company that you participate, the company I'm with, they all use AI trading now. And all that is an algorithm where they go in and put in their parameters saying, look for this, 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 and this. And that creates these trends.
100%. So look at this. We're looking at the Dow. This could be the last one, because I've done it on all the 5 major markets myself, and I've done it on Bitcoin too, actually.
Well, you can look at the Qs as well.
Yeah. But notice
The
the
Qs,
trend.
I think, look different.
Notice the trend since 2009.
Yeah,
Look
well,
familiar?
it's no secret why. I mean, that's why our country's sinking like a rock now, because
Well,
all the money's been going into the markets, not into
okay.
the roads or the infrastructure.
Okay, bro. So you say it's no secret because you and I study this. But can you imagine what I'm showing you now? To you and I, this is second nature now. Can you imagine showing what you and I are discussing to our families?
Well, no, because it's,
They would be
and
blown away.
even us 3 years ago,
Yeah,
I didn't understand any of this just 3 years ago because I wasn't doing this.
exactly. So look at it. Exact same thing. Same upward trend since 2009 because of all the quantitative easing. And I'm not complaining. It's opportunity. But look at the basic shape. What's it look like? A big ass head and shoulder. Look where it double topped up here. It double topped at 36.3. But at the rate it's going, dude, it's got to get past here, which is 34.3. At the rate it's going, you can argue that, see this, if I circle it, you can argue like around here, this was an inverted head and shoulder, and that I think it's going to get up here. I think it's going to get up here. And if it gets up here, that'll be for the 3rd time, and it could break through. And if it breaks through, dude, it could go to 50,000. Like Stansberry has been saying, here's 50,000 up here. It could get there.
Well, here's why it could, okay? When you have extreme inflation and you have higher interest rates, what does that mean? Please, a short answer. I don't want the 10-minute answer. What that translates to
What's
is
it mean?
It very simple. Higher prices. Higher prices. Prices have to go up.
Right.
Because the cost of everything's going up. So what does that translate to? It means companies are going to have higher revenues.
Right. Which means this will probably go to 50,000.
Well, and higher revenues means higher GDP.
Right.
And the stock market is directly linked to GDP. That's why 100%. It's been in an uptrend.
So I believe, and I've been saying this for a while,
so
we're going to have a melt up. It's going to be a melt up before it all comes crashing down.
Well, it's very possible. We could have a meltdown, then a meltdown, like we did in 2020.
So here's my green line, 50,000. Look at the trend line. It's on trend, dude, to get there. It's above this trend line. It's absolutely on trend. So if you look, this is where the intersection would happen if it stays on trend. The intersection would be March. Well, that says March of 2039. It'll get there. It'll get there way before.
Yeah, we might be dead, but we'll get there.
Yeah, if there's a World War III. But it'll right. So we got 16 years before it'll get there. But at the rate it's been popping up in the air, it's going to get there geometrically fast.
Well, just look at from 2020.
Yeah.
And follow that. Put a new. Do me a favor. Put an additional trend line from 2020 to today. Yeah, that's fine, right there.
Yeah.
Now go to where 39 or 50,000 is.
Exactly, bro.
Now it's only a few years away.
Now it's 2028.
Just save 10 years.
Yep. Right on, bro. Right on. So that's you're right, because look at the trajectory. And if you really want to get more extreme, you match it up this way, right?
Match it up to November of 21.
Okay.
Now what? Now see where it is.
Yeah, that's not gonna. That would have to go straight up in the air, dude.
Well, it's possible if you get into a hyperinflationary period, Dan.
So
look at Venezuela and Zimbabwe.
Okay. All right. So listen, amigo. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that would put us in. Look at July. No, hold on. July of this year. No fucking way. It would have to go straight up in the air. It would have to go straight up in the air. It would be totally on Viagra. Totally.
We're all trillionaires by July.
Jerome Powell will be drilling his wife into Tomorrowland. Right?
What?
I said Jerome Powell would be drilling Janet Yellen into Tomorrowland.
Well, there's a lot of things happening in the United States now that you never thought you'd ever see. So the fact that our markets could go to Zimbabwe land and Venezuela.
Yeah. So see how this says July of 2028?
Yeah.
I argue it's not going to be July of 2023. I could be wrong, but even if you take somewhere in the middle, dude, this is going to happen. It could happen in the next year and a year or two. It could get to that level by 20.
And here's the sad thing, Dan. Here's the sad thing.
It could.
Well, here's the sad thing. Okay, so the market spike, you're making double your money in the market, but now it costs 10 times more for everything.
I understand that.
So you're really losing.
Yeah. No,
and people who aren't taking advantage of these money-making opportunities are really losing. But I'm making 5% in my money market, Dan.
That's my point. That's exactly my
Used
point.
to be zero. Now it's that's what I'm hearing all these people are saying. Wow, yeah. I'm making 5% on my money market. It used to be zero. Hello.
Yeah. Totally.
You're still losing 5-10% a year.
Look at it.
And please go. Can you change it to candles, please? You really need to go to candles. You're losing a lot of information.
I hate candles, but
then you're losing out on.
I do better in patterns, but
just go to candles for me, please. Very simple. Over to the right, it will say line. You currently have it on line. Go to candles. Yep.
All right.
You notice that gap? See, that's something you don't see in a line chart. You see that gap? Notice what USO is doing right now. It's filling the gap.
It's filling the gap. Okay. That's a good point. Let me go back.
You don't see that on a line chart.
Yep. You don't.
Huge information.
You see the pattern, but
pattern is only one small. And the other thing that a candle tells you, it tells you the war. Like if you zoom in, the war that's going on. I mean, when you see gaps, when you see gaps like that, you know that there's major moves going on. Look at the drop in the last 3-4 days in oil.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
You won't see that in a line chart. That tells you danger, Will Robinson. It means we're falling like a freaking brick. It means when people are getting out of energy, Dan, that's a huge deflationary warning.
Good point.
And the only reason it gapped up, do you remember why it gapped up? Because OPEC Plus cut production.
Oh, I heard that. That's right. That's right.
And they cut production. And think about this. Yeah. Tesla's cutting prices. OPEC is cutting production.
Yep.
Okay.
Good point. So, then there's going to be.
It tells you that everybody is going into defense. Everybody's going into defense.
Yep, less demand. Yep. People are hunkering down. They're not spending as much. And
did you see Bank of America had the highest ever quarterly inflow of funds went into Bank of America in Q1?
Yep. Yeah, I heard that. Because of the regionals and all the bullshit. So you and I have been talking about this for 3 or 5 years on videos. The government has been slowly but surely corralling us. Yeah. And I use that analogy or metaphor constantly. We are the cattle, we are the herd, we are the sheep. They keep herding us into these smaller and smaller pens. Do you notice these smaller pens? So you had a massive pen of small and regional banks. What are they doing? They're funneling us out of these banks and into the bigger banks, physically or whatever. But essentially, it's a smaller pen, to use a metaphor.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's like they say they have FDIC, and then they come out and say, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Exactly. They're hurting us. And then when you factor in what's coming with the CBDCs, when you factor in the second or third round of COVID shit, when you factor in social scoring, you factor in, all that. I mean, we are going to be ultimately under the thumb. And that's where we're headed. And people don't see it, as a whole. Because I guess if they saw it as a whole, there'd be a fucking revolution. And we would tell the politicians, fuck you, we're not going that way.
Do me a favor, hit 2 year on that chart. Okay, look at what USO did just 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah. Where it was, you mean? Yeah, up here. Yeah.
Well, what did it do?
Well, look at the massive gap down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. So when the markets were tanking, well, it tanked as well, right? Yeah.
It led the charge.
Yeah. Dropped off a cliff.
It went, remember, we were watching it. Oil actually went negative. Dan and I, if we had had a truck, we could have showed up in Oklahoma at these refineries or these, we could have shown up with our tanker truck and they would have paid us to take the oil.
Oh my God. We should have done something.
They
like
would
that.
have paid us $40 a barrel to take the oil.
And then we could have resold it when it went
Well,
back.
what you do is, really, see, this is the thing. People were doing that, Dan. People were actually doing that. Some people were showing up, and then what they did is they're like, the cost of the tanker is X amount. They just let it sit in the tanker for a month or two and wait for the price to go up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So what did they do? Rent a tanker? Like the things you see at the.
Well, I think these people were in the business.
Well, that's
and,
the thing. Yeah.
The average, they had the
average schmo.
equipment.
Yep. I agree.
They had the equipment. But this is what we're seeing is like, if you go back to that USO chart, this is probably not the time to be buying oil. It's right in the middle of a range. That isn't where I'd be buying.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting, I agree. Yeah. What's interesting is look at the pattern. It just completed an inverted head and shoulder, topped out around here. It just completed it, and now it's on the down low. I think it's going to go down to at least here, somewhere around here. Worst case, it double bottoms to this level, which is like $19.
Or even just a little bit higher where it bounced. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, or here. Yeah, it could go to $25 a barrel. It's possible. Absolutely. I mean, it already went to here. It could absolutely, I think, go to around here, $50. This is support around here, right?
Yeah.
40-ish, 41, right? And then here, boingo.
And oil, whether we want to believe it or not, oil is still the lifeblood of the world, man. And
100%. Yeah, no argument.
And so, where this chart goes, we probably will see oil react before the stock market. Like we're looking at it start to vomit right now. Okay, so this is the USO chart.
Yep.
You can see since it crashed, it's been in an uptrend, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, until this period, November, it's gone sideways.
Mm-hmm.
You with me?
I'm watching, yeah.
Okay, so if we go to PBR.
I appreciate the insight here because I know you see stuff that I don't, so this will be helpful.
Time will tell if that's true or not.
It is.
Look at this ugly chart.
Two brains are better than one.
Look at all those gaps on Petrobras.
Well,
and that's what happens when you get these foreign stocks, because you have currency exchange problems now and shit like that. So it makes it even harder to trade.
So I just want to thank you. You taught me something. Even though I hate candles, I'm going to look at candles every so often now to see the gaps, to your point. That's very helpful.
Well, that's just the beginning. I sent you a whole thing on candle charts that will give you the basics on it. Candles give you so much information because you can still see patterns with candles, Dan. You can still see the pattern. You can still see head and shoulders, and you can still see uptrends like I'm doing with this line. Okay, so look at Petrobras. Yeah. Look at that. November, it dropped over, and now it's chopping back and forth.
Yep.
Now, here's the scary thing. Here's what you don't see in oil.
Yep.
Is what's developing on Petrobras there, potentially.
Well, right now, it's a combination of a W shape and or in completing an inverted head and shoulders.
Right? Yeah, could be either. Well,
and it could get back to trend, to your point.
Like Oxy, which is what Warren Buffett just, I think, doubled his position a few months ago.
You know what I forgot to mention to you in the outline? Warren Buffett's going into all these Japanese companies like gangbusters. Why?
Because their people are Do you know Japan had twice as many deaths as births last year?
I didn't know that, but I knew their population, they had more people above 65 than under 40 or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of difficult to survive as a country when you're losing twice as many.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah,
They're going to become extinct at this rate.
well, yeah, they're not having babies. It's too expensive.
Yeah. The Nikkei has been a disaster since the late 80s, right?
Yeah, and the U.S. is following their policies.
Isn't that great?
Okay.
Yeah, let's just
So-
be just like them.
So do you see the difference in the chart? It's still above its trend line, Oxy. Look at, do you remember what happened? You see where my line is on the date there? Can you see the date?
Yeah.
March 7th.
March 7th, 2020.
What happened around that time frame? Russia invaded Ukraine,
Oh, that was March of 2022?
roughly.
Yeah,
Give or-
you're right. A year ago, right?
Yeah. So look at what happened to Oxy. It went from 37
Yeah,
up to 58 in a couple weeks.
because of the war.
Yeah, and it stayed up there. See, so that stayed elevated.
Yep.
But
Well-
isn't that amazing that last year, oil was on that trend line. Look at how it followed that trend line up, 45-degree angle from the low.
Yep.
It didn't bounce back to here where it was before COVID like everything else.
Yep. Good point. Well, see what war does? Yeah.
Well,
That's
what
what
I'm
war
saying
does.
is oil and commodities show the truth, and the bond market, of course, shows really what's going on. They can inflate Apple back to $400
Good point.
because they want to.
But you're saying, to your point, amigo, and that's a good point, that with commodities, they really are realistically indicative of the basic laws of supply and demand, right? Dictated
Well,
by what's going on in the world, right?
Well, yeah, it really, as we see inflation, you can see commodities, and even commodities are getting whipsawed the last couple of years.
Oh,
But
big
I
time.
want to go back to the Petrobras chart. So I
Yeah,
want
what
to
do you want to
show,
look at Petrobras? Yeah.
I want to just compare them. So this is still above its trend line, and you can see that it popped, it almost did a double or 80% in a couple weeks when the war started. Well, did that happen for Petrobras? Let's see.
No. Well, good point. I don't know. Petrobras now, my understanding is, though, they're not like a full service company somehow. Like they get the oil out of the ocean or whatever, but they don't refine it. They don't have the refining equipment.
Well, Mexico, Pemex, they used to refine it through Exxon, I believe, just like Brazil. And now Mexico, I don't even think they do it. I think they have to send all their oil outside the country to refine it now, and then have to bring it in.
Wow.
And that's probably why the Chinese probably want to get in here, Chinese and the Russians. Okay, so this was March. So it had already popped before then.
So
And there was
that-
a very
that-
small pop.
Mhm. That could potentially be the same for Brazil then. That's why the Russians and the Chinese want to get in there, because the Brazilians don't have the refining capability, from what I understand.
Well, if you look at the MO of the Chinese over the last 50 years, starting with Mao, that has been one of their objectives, is to get into Africa, get into these countries early, build their roads, their schools, their bridges, and take their natural resources, run their ports.
Mm-hmm.
They look at it as a win-win. They're giving you something for getting. They're not going in and bombing you and threatening you.
They're not taking the colonialism approach, which is we go in with troops, it's unilateral, and it's like
It's business.
We'll build your infrastructure. And oh, by the way, we might need some iron ore or some copper and stuff and some resources because, quid pro quo, whatever. You wash my hands, I'll wash yours, right?
Well, the Africans probably aren't even mining the stuff because they don't even know how or have the equipment.
Don't have the technology, don't have the know-how.
Yeah. So, I mean, it truly is a win-win.
There's a difference between being able to run the pipe, the drills and stuff, and get it out. That's one part of the process at a high level. The other part, as you know, is you got to be able to process it and refine it and make the sweet crude versus the other type. And that's a whole separate process. And so.
Well, I think most of these oil companies don't refine it. Most of them transport basic crude in a tanker.
Yep.
Like from Saudi Arabia, and it comes to the U.S. and it gets refined here. I don't think Saudi Arabia is refining their own oil.
Probably not.
Not for the world, maybe for themselves, because they were talking about with the Chinese and the Russians about adding refineries in Saudi Arabia.
Well, exactly. So we're one of the few countries in the world, at least right now, that I'm aware of, that can refine it to the point that it's usable to make it diesel, this, that, and everything else, right? And ultimately so that you can use the stuff and put it in your car and whatnot, right? That's
it's actually it is, and it's a very complicated process from the standpoint that you have to have specific equipment for specific grades. And that's one of the things that people were criticizing this current administration on, is they were selling the reserves that we actually need for our economy, for our
100%.
Whereas they weren't selling the shit that we don't use.
Biden,
and I forget which sweetness it was.
This is not a political statement. I mean, Biden, his administration, in my opinion, have done everything they can in almost every way I can think of to drive us.
They've done everything wrong. Everything wrong.
To drive us off the cliff. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay.
As much of a clown as Trump is, at least he was moving the goalpost forward.
Exactly. Totally. I agree.
And he was addressing things that were threats to our country.
100%. So he deserves a lot of credit for that.
So you might not like the messenger, okay, but you should listen to the message.
And you know what? Whether you like him or not, and I happen to like him, by the way, he's been right on just about everything.
And you won't hear the media say this, but you can find it on the internet, where they're like, Trump was right again. Trump was right again. Trump was right again.
I can't think of anything the guy was wrong about so far, at least a big major thing, okay? He's been right every step of the way, okay? And exactly, he's not getting the credit for it. What can I say? But meanwhile, you see that black lady that talks for Biden's administration. She's the mouthpiece there. The press.
Yeah, she's the female lesbian.
Have you ever heard?
That's what she's known as, the female lesbian.
Have you ever heard her speak? It's horrific. She can't answer.
She's terrible. She's terrible.
It's embarrassing. I've listened to her speak 2 or 3 times, and I almost get red-faced. I get embarrassed for her. And this is what
she always gets defensive. She's always like, look, that's not what we stand for.
Right. And it's an embarrassment to the country as well, right? It's like your public relations, your PR for the White House and the country.
That's because you're a white racist, because we have the most diverse White House in history. You should be celebrating.
I have no problem with that, as long as she can speak and answer the friggin' questions.
If you're competent.
Right. If you're competent, I don't care if you look like a zebra, but she's terrible. She can't answer the questions. It's embarrassing. It's beyond embarrassing. And she doesn't know the basic information. The reporters ask her some basic shit, and she can't answer it. And she fumbles around. I'm like,
yeah,
it's embarrassing.
I very rarely watch her, but I will see occasionally where sometimes the reporters won't let it go. Like they'll press her. They'll be like, no, answer my question. And then she can't. She can't. Or she won't, because